Paul. In the last episode, 98 of As Paul Tripp, you helped pastors and churches navigate the unique challenges that come with being a pastor's kid and how we can protect these young souls from disillusionment, even deconstruction. Now, this question is very similar. How does a pastor prevent from overcommitting to ministry and abandoning his family? What are the warning signs? And then what did you do with your family and kids back in your pastoral days?
I have come in my now 50 years of ministry. Just in case you wonder, I started in ministry when I was 7. To understand that one of the most important things you have to admit is your limits. And one of the primary limits I find myself talking about are the limits of time. If you're a pastor, you will never get 40 hours in a day. You'll never get 10 days in a week. You'll never get 50 days in a month. You'll never get 450 days in a year. God has ordained for you to live in that 24/7 environment and limits that He's created. Now, here's what this means. If you keep saying yes, you don't get extra time. What happens is those ministry commitments that you've agreed to begin to eat into other essential areas in your life. And one of the areas that it eats into immediately is family, marriage, parenting. And so you have to realize that it's not always godly to say yes. Sometimes the most godly answer is to say, no, I can't. There's a great Old Testament example of this. Moses is alone as the judge in Israel, about 1 million people. And Jethro's father-in-law comes to him and says, Moses, what are you thinking? This can never work. You're going to get exhausted and beaten down because this is just too heavy. And Jethro says, what you need to do is appoint leaders. And he appointed leaders over 10, leaders over 100, leaders over 1,000, organized the leadership of Israel, because ministry is always a community project. Let me just tell you how I handled this as a young pastor. I was afraid of my family getting lost in the process, the demanding busyness of starting a church and a Christian school. And so on a Sunday, I made an announcement to my congregation that between the hours of 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock, I would have no meetings and see nobody for counseling, because those are the hours where my children now, who are school children, were going to be home. They're the primary moments when I was going to be with them. We'd have family worship after dinner. I would help oversee their homework and put them to bed. I said, I'll see you very early in the morning. I'll see you at lunch. I'll see you after 8 o'clock. But during that period of time, I can't do this. One of my contributions to the congregation is to be a good father. And I'm determined to do that. People would say to me, well, I can't see you early, I can't see you at lunch, I can't see you late at night. And I would lovingly say to them, if you had an impacted wisdom tooth and your dentist said, I can only see at 6 o'clock in the morning or during your lunch hour or at 9:30 at night, you would say, I'll take any 3 of those. Just get this tooth out. Well, if what you're going through is difficult and painful, we can make this work. There's a second thing that we did is Luella and I didn't want our marriage to get lost in the busyness of ministry. And this will seem extreme to some people, but we covenanted with one another that we would be out of the house 1 day a week. In the beginning, it would just be for an hour because that's all we could do. When we got more babysitters in place, it would be an evening. But we did that religiously. Both of us would say that was a great salvation to our marriage. We always knew we'd have those times. We always knew that things that we couldn't talk about in all the busyness we talk about. Now, I want to say this. We didn't go bowling. We didn't go see a movie. We went someplace, whether a quiet restaurant or a park, so we could be together, so we could talk, so we could enjoy one another. So what are some of the signs of being overcommitted? Well, one sign is when you begin to see your family as a burden or an interruption. When you're a pastor and your wife says, Friday, we just need to be together as a family, and you go, really? Something's wrong, because one of the qualifications for an elder is a person who manages his family well. If you can't pastor your family, you probably are not going to be a good pastor of Christ Church. Ongoing impatience and irritation inside of the family is another sign. Absence from important events in the children's lives. I've talked to ministry children who said, my dad was never at my games, never at parent-teacher meetings. No time outside of the house with your wife. Regular exhaustion and feelings of being overburdened and overwhelmed. I counseled a ministry leader who was doing too much. They had 5 or 6 little boys. Think about that. And his wife met him at the door and essentially said, I'm done. It's us or your ministry, but I can't continue to do this anymore. Because he was an absentee father and an absentee husband. And his wife was left with the burden of the entire family on her shoulders. One of the things I would encourage pastors to do is sit down with your wife and children who are old enough to do this, and tell them you won't get angry, but ask them to write down on a piece of paper 5 character qualities that best describe you in your home, whether that's as a husband or as a father, and then take that list seriously. Maybe that list will tell you you're living beyond your limits and you're in a spiritually unhealthy place. And your children, the hearts of your children, are going to pay the price for that. Final thing I want to say is, in terms of limits, establish accountability with your wife and a fellow leader. let your wife say, I think you're doing too much. You shouldn't say yes to this. Where is this going to go? We don't have any more time. It's great when I had a dear friend say to me, I'll never forget it. He said, Paul, no one is going to say no for you. You have got to learn to say no. And just that one statement rescued me from a lot of ministry and family difficulty.